Being an emotional grown-up means setting your ego aside to be in service to your kid. Okay, so my favorite story in the book, spoiler alert, hands down favorite story, favorite dad, a gay dad, 3 children. They were remarkable kids, they're all grown now, sitting at a park bench, and his little adorable daughter, Allie, big brown eyes, pigtails, comes up to us, we're on the park bench. Daddy, Ava won't play with me. She won't play. And what do you want to do as a parent? You know, so he honors the feelings. He acknowledges her. He sees you. That a validating statement. That must be so hard, sweetie. It's so hard. She's excluding me. The tear. And then he says, shocks me. What are you going to do to solve the problem? What? She's like 4. What are you going to do to solve the problem, as opposed to parents? I'll get her, right? You know, taking your kid and sweeping her up, right, and fixing it. What are you going to do to solve the problem? So then she says, without missing a beat, oh, I could go play with a girl I really like with pigtails and brown eyes. And he says, oh, you mean you, Allie? And off she runs. And I look at him and I said, I don't know if you know, but I am a psychiatrist. I've written a parenting book. That is the best parenting I've ever seen. And he said, that little Ava's a bitch. And the parents are I was like, oh my God, stop. So what shocked me about that story was then I even liked him more. Because I was like, he was sitting on all that. And that's what parents do. We can't go interfering and fixing everything. It backfires. And basically say, you need your mommy and daddy. That's the message. I don't believe you can handle this. You need your mommy and daddy. Right? Said to my teenage son the other day, you know, why don't you take a coat? It's warm. He's like, it's cold. He's like, you're cold. I'm not cold. Wow. And then you gotta honor that in all of my things. Like, oh, it's gonna be cold, he's gonna freeze. No, I'm not saying a word. Because you have to let them man up. If mommy and daddy are racing to fix everything and this failure to launch thing is real. Do you want your kids on your couch? Do you want them in your basement? Maybe some Jewish parents, right? Yeah, sure. You don't. Trust me. The psych bills are high for that. They're very, very high. We are human, and we have a high degree of human error. When there's rupture, follow it with repair. We have the best, most intimate moments are when you mess up. They always say good therapy doesn't start until you're mad at your psychiatrist or your therapist, and you say, you didn't get me when, and then they can own it, and you can process something and work through it in a different way. When parents mess up, it's the same. May I have a daddy do-over? Own your mistakes. I'm so sorry, honey. What I said to you was right. My volume was too high. I'm going to work on lowering my volume, right? So an actress saw this talk, only in LA, right? I'll spare you her name because you all know her. And she said, you have to include this story in your next lecture. I'm like, okay, let me see what it sounds like. My kid got invited to the dance by Cindy Crawford's son, right? Only in LA, right? Wow. And she's got a mad crush on this guy, and so I'm driving her to the dance. How should I be at the dance, Mom? And she said, I'm in the car, my kid's in the rear view mirror. I'm like, be nice, but don't be too nice. And remember to put that lipstick on, that lip gloss I gave you. And she said, as I'm speaking like this to my child, I am vomiting out every word my mother ever told me. And I'm sick. And she said, and then I remembered your mommy do-over. And she said, honey, can I have a mommy do-over? And she said, sure. She said, can you ask me that same question again? She said, how should I be at the dance? And she said, be yourself. It is so good enough. You don't need to be anybody else, honey. And the daughter wept. And that daughter is now thriving and very old. My children are the most enriching personal seminar that I have ever taken. Your children give you a second opportunity to have childhood. It is a silver platter moment to rework your childhood. When you give your kids something you've never been given, that's not stuff. That's not allowing them not to suffer, but really seeing them and helping them and guiding them. You get part 2 of your own childhood. You'll see, there are moments that are quite spectacular. These guys who fear becoming fathers don't understand that fathering is not something perfect men do, but something that perfects the man. The end product of raising a child is not the child, but the parent. You will grow. If you're doing this parenting thing right, your kids will reflect your stuff and like, woo, woo. And then you get to grow and change it. Trash the trash talk. Now that Mr. Rogers has come back, let's bring back Oscar. I want to actually encourage you guys, if you have not seen the show of hands if you've seen Mr. Rogers documentary. Okay, put it on your list. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I'm old, so I grew up with Mr. Rogers, so there's nostalgia for me. But Mr. Rogers says things like, kids, you're going to hear the word assassination today. Every grown-up is going to be using the word assassination because Kennedy was shot. Shocking you would tell a preschooler that, right? You'd want to shield them. He says, allow them to feel sad. Allow them to work through the feelings. If you're shielding them from every feeling, how can they work through the feeling? So I'm getting a ton of parents with anxious kids. You know, pretty much every day, every hour, a new parent shows up, my kid is anxious, right? They don't want him to be sad. They don't want him to feel bad. And if you don't let your kid feel bad or sad, you say, I can't handle your feelings. So if your kid is crying, oh, I don't want to go to bed. Okay, we don't have to go to bed. I'll sleep with you. Let me get the coat. Daddy's coming in. You basically say, suffering is intolerable. Suffering is intolerable, and you can't handle it. That's a very bad message to give a kid. Versus, yeah, sometimes you feel sad. Yeah, and guess what? Emotion has the word motion in it. Motion. Emotions move through you like waves. It'll pass. Let's just sit together. What are your ideas, right? Nobody wants to see their kids suffer. When people say, I just want to make my kids happy, you know what the answer to that is? Then allow them to be sad. Allow the answer to, I mean, every time I went around the world and back, including Australia, giving this lecture, right? I just want my kids to be happy. I say, if someone says that one more time, I'm going to scream. Because making your kids happy is impossible. Allowing them to feel sad and at home with their emotions. How many, people come to me to see me as a psychiatrist, they're too sad. They're too anxious, right? They have extremes, they don't have their feelings modulated. We're like psychic glue for our kids. We have to be okay when they're suffering. Even if in your head you're going, oh my God, this is so hard to watch, this is so hard. You sit there, I know, sweetheart, it's okay. The answer's no. That teaches them you can handle their feelings. I think if you could get one thing out of this talk today, distress tolerance. There are centers all around the world that are popping up with distress tolerance. DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is going to be taught in schools. It's basically how do you handle distress. And if you don't let your kids practice, you say, this distress scares the shit out of me, let me shut it down. Then you make them even bigger. You make their feelings scary. And then what they do, they get a defensive guard around their heart, or they act out and their feelings are very volatile. The more you have consistent rules, the safer the kid feels. The safer the child feels and the less anxiety. I'm so sick of these little lawyers that parents think are so charming. These little negotiators are not charming. They're not charming. They're exhausting. Charming maybe for a minute. Okay, my kid is smart and negotiates. Shut it down. Reverse negotiate. Go backwards. I want to stay up till 8. Oh, you know bedtime's 7:30, but I want 8. Now it's 7. Huh? Wait, no, let's go back to 8. Now it's 6:30. When you go backwards on negotiation, you will knock that little lawyer out for good. I mean, you will shut it down. Go backwards. The more they talk, the less they get. We need tools to know it's okay to discipline our kids. So we also want to trash the trash talk. See how I'm doing on time. My son is hell on wheels. She's such a drama queen. When I was going to be a pediatrician, I was holding a little tiny 2-year-old baby, literally 2 years old in intensive care. And the mom said, oh my God, she's such a drama queen. And I said, oh, who? And she said, that baby. I was like, wow, really? The one who's in the ICU has never spoken to you as a drama. We project a lot of crap onto her. My kid's just like my husband. No, he's not. He is you for a mother, right? He is him for a father. You have a different set of... That projection gets in the way of us really seeing who our child is. It's unfair. I hate this bad boy, good girl, shame on you. That's selfish. Don't name call your kids. Don't name call your kids. There's always a polite way to say it. So I'll tell you a story when I got married about the power of language. I got married and quickly had children, and all of a sudden breastfeeding one, making dinner. My husband has a business meeting, and he says, this is a big meeting and people are flying in. Can you be in the car at 7 o'clock? Sure, no problem. It's super important to be on time because we're hosting, no problem. All of a sudden I'm blow drying my hair, breastfeeding. Then I look at the clock at 7:15 and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be, yikes. Run to the car, waiting for my husband to say, I told you, that you had to be in the car and you knew about, and he said, how can I help you in the future? Seems like you were doing so many jobs. Being on time is important to me, but it seems like you were working. So all of a sudden I was like, we are going to stay married forever. He's like, that's your response to that? So I was like, we are going to just you're a lifer, I do have milk coming out of my breast, so, but we're in for life, This is going to go the distance, the power of language. Now, had I gotten in the car and he said to me, I told you all week long this meeting was important, I would say, well, you weren't breastfeeding, you weren't making the broccoli, you weren't blow drying your hair, right? You get defensive. He spoke from a place of love. So if we can model that, super important. Rabbi leader, whoever said sticks and stones may break my bones, was completely wrong. We all skinned our knees as kids. Those wounds are long forgotten. Angry outbursts, insults we remember forever. Words wound in deep and powerful ways. I still have patients. I don't wear jeans. My dad told me I look fat in jeans. I still have patients who say that to me, and they're 70. When I hear my parents saying, you're so bad, I'm so mad, I'm taking away your toys, I think that mom doesn't love her kid, because love doesn't talk like that. That was actually my son. We were in the basement of a store in New York, and this mother's like, you're so bad, I'm so mad, you're so bad, you're so bad. And my son was so little, and he said, love doesn't talk, that mom doesn't love her kid. And I said, oh yes, sweetheart, that mom loves her kid. And he said, love doesn't talk like that. Wow, did he school me at age 7. Love doesn't talk like that. He's right. Oh, this is the Disneyland mom. So of course I had to go back and interview her. Her quote is, our children are our guests for 18 years. We have to treat our guests with the utmost respect. And they have to treat us with the utmost respect and listen to our rules. And not second or third time. They listen on the first time. They listen on the first time. I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to wrap up. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. What do you leave to your child when you're dead? Only whatever you've put in its head. Children will listen. Stephen Sondheim. Pretty powerful. You're an internalized voice in your children's heads forever. When I worked in Alzheimer's, on the inpatient unit in Alzheimer's, there was a man who was dying. He was unfortunately dying alone at 3 in the morning. And he started singing a lullaby. He was in his 80s, that his mom sang to him when he was a baby. And he died. Couldn't remember anything, but could remember the mother's lullaby. So that stuff is forever in your brain. Oh, this was my mom's voice is ingrained in me. I can always hear it. Thank goodness she had a loving voice. So much of mental health comes from how you speak to yourself. I don't think we have time for all this. An anxious brain. That's when you say to your kid, I don't need a coat. I wanted to say, are you sure? It's cold. It's going to get cold. It's supposed to rain. And I just zip it. Okay. You feel like you don't need a coat, right? And next time he gets somewhere and he's cold, he's going to remember to bring a coat, or maybe he really doesn't get as cold as I do, right? Product kids, I'll just give you the gist of this because we don't have time to go through it. My mentor, Lizette Davison, who's since passed away, today's parents want a perfect child. You can have Prada boots, but today's parents want a Prada kid, right? And that's the slide. The fathers, the stop clock, the tuba, reading the math facts, this is not going to get you anywhere except in a psych office. It'll get you to me. This will get you to me. Screaming and yelling on the sidelines. My oldest son went to Harvard Westlake, and he went to Penn. He played tennis for Harvard Westlake and for Penn. And there was a kid he worshipped at Harvard Westlake when he was a freshman. This kid actually is a doctor now, but he was a softball player, a volleyball player, and a tennis player. And he was like a phenom athlete, and my freshman son worshipped the Lord. And on the way to the game, I told my husband, oh, I bet I can find his parents. And my son looked at me, he's like, wow, you're so cocky. And my husband's like, you're so cocky. What are the odds you can find this kid's parents in the crowd? I'm like, well, watch me. So then I was getting a little cockier. So I decided to up the ante. I was like, forget dinner, let's go to Cabo if I'm right. You know, I was like having a field day. And I got there, and instead of watching the tennis, I watched the crowd. I just watched the crowd, and then there they are. And I went up to them and I said, oh, I'm Andrew's mom, I don't know you. And they said the kid's name, and I was like, Cabo! And my son was like, oh, like, and my husband was shocked. Like, how did you do that? I was like, it was so easy. They were the only ones not screaming. They were the only ones who let the game be their child's. Wow. The kid wasn't looking at the court. Go, hit the ball, shoot up, move faster, run your feet. They're looking at they lose all their natural instincts. Sue Enquist is a Hall of Famer I interviewed, and she's like, kids have no natural instincts because their parents are so busy screaming they can't hear themselves or their coach. So I found the two silent people, and there were only two. In the entire stand at Harvard Westlake, there were two. And I found them, and my son all the way home. It was a very enjoyable moment, a very good mommy moment. Don't make me unfriend you. My kid's a genius. The level of narcissism and bullying and bad messages is so insane. These were just off Walmart and Target. Like this shit, right? Look at these. History in the making. Really? Wow, how grandiose. Can't stop this. Eat my dust. That's not kind, right? It's never too early to start preparing for college. This was on San Vicente. This is not a made-up slide. The only way to not prepare your kids for childhood, for college, is to rob them of a childhood, because they will combust. Too much activity, too much running around, too many this and Kumon and grades, and then by the time they're in 8th grade, they don't want to play any sport. They're done. They've had it with you. We'll announce our decision in a few minutes. This is not happening. You're not going from the toddler field to, whatever. Okay. So this is a really scary study from Harvard. What do you think is the most important thing to your parents? My achievement. Second, my personal happiness. Third, my caring. Right? So teach kindness. Kindness is cool. Kindness leads to happiness. Kindness leads to connection. People who are kind have less depression. People who are kind live longer. People who are kind have better immune systems. The list goes on and on. Teach kindness. Okay, my religion is simple. My religion is kindness. Okay, so to wrap up, let me just wrap up here. How often do you see that? In today's world. So I was at the beach and everybody was on an electronic device except this one kid. And I walked up to him and I said, what are you doing? And he said, feeling peace. Wow, feeling peace. Versus that, right? My rule on electronics is delay, 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 delay. It might be the easiest babysitter in the world. It doesn't make your kids babysit, it makes them vanish. They disappear. You could not hear from them for hours. They disappear, and every parent needs a break. But you will make your job so hard if you're saying, you're upset? Here, do Angry Birds. Well, I'm an angry bird. Get that out of their kid's face and work through those feelings. They're upset. Work through the feelings. Don't throw some electronic device and then ask them why they're addicted. Yes?
So I have 11-year-old and 13-year-old who both have phones, but neither of them are on social media. So I hear it's a good thing and a bad thing because in some ways they're behind, they're not connected to their friends on social media. Where do you stand with that?
I say the word behind, I would say they're way ahead. They're way ahead. Yes, the question was my kids are 11 and 13 and they're not on social media, are they behind? Not only are they not behind, they're ahead. So I went to the head of the Common Sense Media, the guy from Stanford. He talked at Harvard Westlake. There were like 500 of us in the audience. And a girl got up, a junior girl, and started bawling when they asked her questions, thanking her mother for not letting her have social media till her sophomore year in high school. That she saved her, and she was mad about it then, but that she saved her so much agony. Do you know how hard it is when you see yourself not getting invited to a party? Can you imagine being an adolescent who's totally insecure? It's the height of insecurity, and you see all your friends out doing something that you were not invited to? You're inviting disaster. Delay, delay, delay. Yes?
What would you say is
Oh, yay! What would you say?
my 13-year-old just joined Instagram. He's barely on it. He doesn't care. He just uses it for a little bit of information. He doesn't follow what everybody's doing, really. It's more about cooking and just...
So the question is?
What age do you think is a good time if you have to start? Like,
The age depends on the maturity of your child. It's also a teaching tool. Look at what this girl posted. What do you think she's representing about herself? Look at that bikini shot. You will be shocked that these sweet elementary school kids, the minute they hit middle school, they are doing like porn shots. It's porn shots in it. And so honestly, it depends on the kid's maturity. It depends on how open your relationship is, talking about, I'm going to be looking at your Instagram account. I'm going to be following you, letting them know. Because they don't have the frontal lobe. So they don't have the decision making. So they can put up one picture that can screw them for life. And we've seen this again and again with colleges. A Harvard guy threw that thing up and they pulled his Harvard admission back, right? So why get into the can of worms? This is like we're breastfeeding on cell phones these days. We're literally breastfeeding. Oh look, she's on the phone. It's a boy, it's a girl, he's on the phone. Okay, stop texting and change me, out of stock, right? This is an iPod-y. This is also out of stock. You can't get this for Hanukkah or Christmas. It's out of stock, so you can't even poop on your own, right? We have to think about what we're doing, and we're going to wrap up. Watch the mentorship on TV. Again, I'm dating myself, Father Knows Best, the Brady Bunch, the Kardashians, and Housewives. I mean, we really have to watch what our kids are seeing. And the less, I don't even want to play this if you've ever seen this game. It is the most disturbing. I cannot push play on that because when I do, it's gang rape of women. It's people getting their head cut off and then acid thrown on and fire built. Literally, and this is a very common middle school video game. And it's, people always say, is the violence in the world connected to the violence in video games? You know, think about it. Right? I'm just going to speed to the end here. Last two slides. So hopefully from today, some of you who have younger kids, you're the keeper of the calendar, the chauffeur, the manners police. I used to, say to my kids, this is not a napkin. Your sleeve, it's not a napkin, right? Doctor, nurse, you're the personal shopper. But higher than that, you're the emotion coach. So when my son was 3 and he fell down the stairs and I could see his skull and my husband was so thrilled that I was a doctor and I was going to be able to handle it, I flipped. I have to say. When you see your own kid's skull, it's, like, so my husband's like, oh, I think he just needs a Band-Aid. I was like, that's his skull. That's his skull. That white thing is not a Band-Aid. That's his skull, right? And I knew I couldn't hold the emotion myself because I had lost it, right? And it's easier in the ER when it's not your own kid and you got a white coat on, but when your kid has got a skull in front of you. So what did I do? I called my best friend. My kid was crying in the car. I called my best friend who's an ER doctor in Chicago, and I was like, hi, John, we're headed to the ER. And he could hear this wailing in the back. He goes, oh, so cool. We have popsicles in the ER. He's like, you're so lucky. And my kid started smiling. Started smiling ear to ear. He's like, I want an orange popsicle with blood gushing down his head and his skull. So they borrow your nervous system. We are their nervous system. So if something happens, you go, oh my God, what are you doing? That's what you're going to raise, right? They have mirror neurons. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the word mirror neurons. Mirror neurons mean they are mirroring you. So if you want a child to be something, you have to change yourself, right? Thank you, Mom. And the very last slide, I promise. So my best friend is a psychiatrist, and she read my book before I sent it off, and she said, you forgot one thing. You interviewed doctors, pediatricians, psychologists, teachers of the year. You forgot the kids. So then I had so much fun, and I went around interviewing kids. And this was from a preschooler.